Hi, everyone. Welcome to eTail Unplugged, our very first episode. We're so excited to kick this thing off. I have Leo and Liz with me today from the production team, and we are going to be your hosts for these upcoming podcasts, and we're super, super excited. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Kristen Schoenstein. I'm the Chief of Staff for eTail Palm Springs in Boston. I also produce on Palm Springs and in Boston right now. So recruiting speakers, doing the research, helping to write the program, all the fun things. So yeah, that's a little bit about me. I live on the North Fork of Long Island with my 3 kids and my dog. And I'd love to turn it over to you, Liz, if you can tell the group a little bit about you and how you're involved with eTail.
Sure. Before I do that, I feel like, experience being a mom, wrangling those 3 kids probably helps wrangling the eTail team, huh?
The speaker wrangling and the kid wrangling do have a lot of overlap. I'll tell you that for sure. For sure.
Comes in handy.
Yeah.
Excellent. My name is Liz Robillard. I have been on the eTail team since I think 2022, but been producing conferences since 2013. Just dove right into it right out of college. So just been, working in this world, which is just a world you honestly can't understand unless you've been a part of it. It's kind of a wild ride, but have just taken over Kristen's old role of being the program director for eTail Palm Springs and eTail Boston. I truly love working on the event. I love being able to work with brands that I really like, get to learn more about them, what they're doing, the ways that they're trying to, connect with their customers in our ever-changing digital world. But yeah, that's a little bit about me. I live in Queens in New York City, and I live with a wild and crazy cat who will maybe jump up on my lap or behind me at some point during this conversation. So I apologize in advance. And I'll turn it over to Leo, who I've known for over 10 years, probably.
Over a decade for sure, Liz. Hello, everyone. My name is Leo Martinez, Program Director for eTail London, Toronto, and I just recently joined the Palm Springs team. Excited for eTail Unplugged, something that as producers we have the privilege is to have access to a lot of folks, all these speakers and executives, the humans behind the brands, right? So call after call, we hear about interesting stories, what keeps them up at night, uh, how do they launch their brand to begin with for those founders and startups out there, or if it's for an executive with a large scale organization, what's top of mind for them in terms of projects and things coming down the pipeline for their organization, right? And yeah, I mean, it's important for eTail, now that it's been around for 25 years, to keep building the momentum with the community, but at the same time engaging the community. And eTail Unplug is a perfect avenue for us to achieve that. Right now, we're in the thick of speaker prep because we do have eTail Toronto next week. And yeah, there's a lot of insights coming in from the conversations this week with the speaker faculty, things I'm already thinking about from a content perspective for next year's program. And excited to share more about these insights and stories that we're hearing with you all in future podcasts as well, episodes.
Yeah, that's kind of an untapped resource, but the prep calls the week before the show, that's like perfect kind of content for future events. I feel like we should be really taking note because you do hear a lot of stuff that you're like, "Ooh, we're not that's not on the program this year, but it's going to be on the next one." I'm writing that down, right? So we're constantly hearing things and absorbing it all, and then we just kind of create the content. So we're hoping that the podcast will give you a little inside look at some of the stuff that we get to hear. Lots of cool things over the years. And it's just a privilege, right? It's a privilege for us to be able to have that access that a lot of people don't have. And then be able to, and then like kind of turn what we're hearing into this content that we get to share throughout the year. So we are very busy. We have a lot going on. A lot of new initiatives.
Thinking about over the years, it's crazy that this is going to be the 26th year of eTail coming up in 2025, which is absolutely
Bonkers.
wild.
Yeah.
And, being sort of a veteran event in the industry. It's just what I think sets us apart, and the reason why we've been around so long as as a conference is just that it's this listening piece. We're always listening. We're listening to what's going on in the industry. We're talking to these, executives every day. And every year it's new research, it's new content. We're continually keeping it fresh. We're moving with the times. Retail moves so fast and has obviously, changed a lot since 1999. But, again, kind of to Leo's point, it's an honor for us to be able to kind of share some of the things that we hear through the work that we do with you all, just to kind of keep you keep you in the know as well with what's going on, and be able to take you behind the scenes of what some of these executives are talking about and seeing and thinking, so that you all can move just as quickly. So we're super excited about that.
For sure. And a lot of great guests coming down the pipe for the year. So, and more to come. We've just been, I think, once you talk to somebody on the phone, you're like, you know what? You'd be great for our podcast. And they are, like, they're so excited, and it's just a new avenue for us, and a little bit more of a long form, right? Because some of these presentations or panels that they're on, maybe when they're on stage, they get 5-10 minutes. And now it's like they get to sort of dig a little deeper with us. We can get to maybe a little more of the heart of a project or an initiative or something that they're just truly passionate and excited about. So lots to come there. And we can't wait to share it all with you. And I know we have a special guest coming up, and unfortunately I have to drop. I'm not going to be part of this first interview. I will be back. I have plenty more to do throughout the year, but I'll let you, Leo and Liz, kind of take this one. I'm so excited for you to share this. And our very first episode, can't wait to hear everything about it. So I'll let you guys take it from here. Thanks.
All right. Leo and I are going to get started with our first interview. Super excited for our conversation with a fantastic guest. Leo, can you tell us about our first guest?
That's right, Liz. It's our first official guest for eTail Unplugged, but I will say it's not the first time that he's been around with eTail. He was recently with us at eTail Toronto, literally coming off the main stage, joining us for this first episode. Jeremiah Curvers, co-founder and CEO of Polysleep. Jeremiah, so you were with us last week at eTail Toronto, and today we have you as the first official guest of eTail Unplugged. You and I have connected multiple times already, in the prep process for eTail Toronto. But for our audience, please tell us a little bit more about yourself, the backstory of Polysleep, and how did it come to be?
Hey, Leo, first, thanks for having me. I'm super excited to be the official first guest on your podcast. Now, in terms of Polysleep, well, it's a very interesting story. Every time I tell it to people, I started a company after sustaining a double herniated disc, a back injury. I was in MarTech previously, and I never thought 10 years ago that I would start selling mattresses online. So Polysleep is officially now 8-year-old. We started as a direct-to-consumer first mattress company, and now we're in over 100 retail stores as well. We're expanding in the US, and obviously have a lot more product than when we originally started. And our goal is really to empower wellness through sleep.
Amazing. Thanks, Jeremiah. So let's talk a little bit about, since the creation of the company, going through a pandemic, going through so many changes in what it feels like in an 8-year time period. What have you seen or adjusted about Polysleep in, how consumers are behaving, even how talent is acquired at the company? What does that kind of look like? How have you guys adjusted the business model since that sort of beginning time period?
There's a lot to unpack there. I think when people say entrepreneurship is a roller coaster ride, it's exactly what it is. There's a lot of high, a lot of lows. Nobody could have predicted what the pandemic and the impact of the pandemic could have been on our business. So to give you a bit of background, we started when the bed-in-a-box boom really was making a lot of noise. In less than 4 years, the first years, we went through, I would say, 2 years of hyper growth. It was extremely hard to manage because
Mhm.
you go from what I call having Swiss knives in your team, people who do a bit of marketing, a bit of operation, a bit of customer service, to changing the organization to have proper defined roles, responsibility, hierarchy levels, directors, managers. So that is extremely complex to navigate without hindering your capacity to staying agile as a business, which you really need to in a fast-paced environment.
Mhm.
So hypergrowth for 24 months, then I would say we were at the verge of having about 50% of the market share compared to traditional retail store. So a massive shift in consumer behavior, buying from traditional mattress store to buying mattresses online, thanks to the massive marketing machine that our company, our competitor, the investment were, I have to say, unsustainable, and some company paid the price for it. But it really shifted the mindset in the consumer mind. That really peaked during the pandemic. And then we saw a completely reverse of the pendulum. Consumer wanted to go back in store. Consumer wanted to be able to touch the product, have a conversation with sales representative. And at some point, you have to ask yourself, am I scared of changing the business model because I'm just getting comfortable in it? Or should I change the business model once again to something more traditional because that's what the consumer dictates? And that's what we did. So it's obviously complex because you go from a narrative that says we cut the middleman to save you money to go see the middleman so that you can have more options, right?
Yeah.
But it went to a point where the margins we were making online were just being eaten up by the big Facebook, the Google ads. The market became so competitive that the average cost per acquisition skyrocketed, almost doubled.
Mhm.
So it was not as advantageous to do that exclusively than to go back and look at traditional retailers and supply chains. So that's what we did. And now we pivoted to having a brand that is really solid that we work on. But then we have child's account that are focused at the product level and at the marketing level with their verticals. So online being one of them, if you go on polysleep.ca, we're actually working on a complete separate brand that's going to be called Signature, exclusive for retailer that's going to have product curated for the retail consumer. So it's pretty exciting. But if you were to ask me, could you dictate how the company would look like 5 years ago or how the company is going to look like 5 years from now? My answer will be, we'll follow the customer. We just want to follow the customer and make sure he have the best service and the best product possible.
Yeah, I feel like that's the mark of a good brand, just completely following the customer and the way that they behave. So kudos to you.
And Jeremiah, as you know, basically 1/3 of our lives is spent sleeping, right? Which makes buying a mattress not only an emotional experience, but at the same time, a overall important aspect when it comes to our health and well-being. So what strategies does Polysleep employ when it comes to brand storytelling and creating those meaningful connections with the customers?
The brand values are rooted very deeply within the company culture because I started a company after being bedridden for 3 months. So the product itself was born because of a need. And that need was, I need to recuperate as fast as possible because there's no way I'm staying 3 more months in bed. So from the get-go, when I started the business, people that gravitated around me really thought and are still convinced today that we're making a difference. So from the ground up, that's one of the key element I think an entrepreneur should focus on. Make sure your values are rooted as deep as possible when you start working on a business. Now, like you mentioned, sleep is essential. It's one of the most important building block of our lives. We know it. When we're sleep deprived, we're going to be moody. We don't digest as well. We're not as efficient. it's as bad as if we have latency when people ask us questions. You know, we can't reflect. So what we try to do from a marketing standpoint is to really create moments that resonate when moments in life happens. What I mean by that, if you're going to have your first child, it is enormous. It's something that is life-changing. If you're going to be someone who move out from the parent house to go live with your first girlfriend or boyfriend, it's a massive, significant milestone as well. So all these milestones, we call them moment in life. Very often, the purchase of a mattress will happen at these specific moments. So what do we want to do from a marketing standpoint? We want to create meaningful story or meaningful campaign that will support your change of not only the mattress, but the habits that gravitates around them to improve your well-being. That's really what we're trying to achieve there. So obviously we use different tactics. Promotional elements are part of the deal in our industry, but there's also a lot of gamification elements. We also try to create contextual marketing subsets of data that will associate a positive elements to the purchase behavior. I'm going to give you an example. We're trying to sell beds for kids, especially newborn. Well, we started writing more and more bedtime story that parents can go on our website, our blogs, newsletter. They can find them on YouTube, on Spotify to read to their children. Or at some point for the children using a tablet themselves to have a different bedtime story on a daily basis. So these compound with the rest of the stack we have in our marketing strategies. So we try to go really, really high from an awareness standpoint. And then obviously we apply different tactics as we go down the funnel.
I will say, so what I see unique in Polysleep and what I absolutely love is that you take a holistic approach, right, to the customer's needs, right? You provide a lot of educational content on site, social media. That's how can a customer integrate a Polysleep product in their day-to-day life,
Yeah.
beyond just selling, oh, here's a product itself, here's product information, here's a demo. No, you actually give them useful, meaningful habits for the day-to-day life. So I find that very unique, and congratulations to you and the team for that. Do want to backtrack a little bit, Jeremiah. You mentioned earlier regarding being entrepreneurial and how you thought about policy based on the needs that you were going through at that point in time, given the medical situation you were going through, right?
Yeah.
Any entrepreneurs back then that you look up to that inspired you, or where would you say that entrepreneurial spirit comes from for you?
There's one in particular. I used to love video games when I was younger.
Mhm.
And there's this person that is actually the mastermind behind Windows, Microsoft Windows. His name is Gabby Newell, known as Gabin in the entrepreneurial community. And at some point, he got fed up of Microsoft and the big corp. I think he had a really nice package and decided to say, I'm going to make video games. And he's the first person that created a game Half-Life from a studio called Valve. And this guy's just, in my opinion, a marketing genius, but an amazing entrepreneur. From Valve was born what we know today as Steam, which is the largest video game distribution asset online. Anybody who plays a video game on a PC will have Steam, most likely to have their collection. And just the approach he had to entrepreneurship is nothing short of amazing. So he was a great source of inspiration. Obviously, my dad was an entrepreneur, so I really saw the high and the lows. He went through great time. He went through harder time. So that's really inspirational. So these are, I would say, the two polar opposite example, one very close to me and one that I've never actually met.
Would you say that the whole video games, your love of video games, also transcends to how you've done gamification with Polysleep as well to present day?
Well, I think there's a book called Octalysis, and I would invite every every listener interested into gamification to read this book. it's amazing to see how close gamification and human psychology and sales techniques are together, intertwined. There's a lot of things we can learn from gamification, because ultimately the goal, and they didn't even knew back in the days, the goal of a game was to create a series of substantial little victories that you can celebrate very easily, to go through hardship to win the next thing, to win the next thing. That's going to get you basically hooked for hours and hours and hours. So that transactional element is very similar to what we try to achieve as a direct-to-consumer brand. When you think about it, people tend to forget that at a transactional level, the purchase is not the only transaction. When someone navigates the web and spend a couple of milliseconds looking at your ad, you have to bring some sort of value, because you're stealing time from that person. If someone is listening to the radio and you push a radio ad, same thing. You have to think on the opposite side of the spectrum. It's not about, they don't care that you pay to have that TV spot or radio spot. You're stealing time from what they're listening to promote something. So that really is part of what I think gamification became so successful, because the idea is to say, I have that 30-second on the radio as a radio spot. How can I not only promote my brand or product, but associate that with a positive experience? So I'm always telling my team that any KPI, any OKR, any action that is measurable should be associated with something positive for the customer. If not, it becomes friction point. And some of them are really hard to deal with. You know, I wish I could control the experience that the delivery man from UPS, right, is doing. I do not, unfortunately, but it's part of the game. And a bad delivery experience, I could say it's not my business, it's not my fault, but it becomes a problem because it can become a friction point.
But you know, it's so interesting because for me, I'm not a gamer myself, but what I will say is that the gamers that I do know, they always suffer from a lack of sleep out there. So with your background as a video gamer and now this co-founder and CEO of Polysleep, I'm just like, who would have thought?
Yeah, it's crazy. And I would invite people to go check. We did an integration in Fortnite. We were the first mattress
Wow.
company to ever do that. The website is still on if you want to look at the campaign, what we did. It's called Woolen Warfare. And we were super happy to do this initiative to try to educate the gaming community, especially the younger one. They're amongst the kids that have the hardest time to sleep. So we worked with different streamer on Twitch to just educate the kid about, go to sleep now, go to bed. You're gonna enjoy it tomorrow anyway. You don't need to have 3 hours sleep because you wanna be on the leaderboard. It's not gonna make you a better player. So we had an amazing initiative within Fortnite, over 10,000 email collected. We were giving prizes, and also, again, it's not something that you can measure direct return on investment. But from a branding standpoint, when you compound that with the other initiative we did, it's totally worth every penny.
Yeah. And I'm sort of thinking about, you know, streamers is just another creator, another influencer. It's just another great arm that ends up feeling very natural. Again, it's not necessarily a hard sell. You're providing this value. Maybe, Jeremiah, tell us a little bit more about sort of your approach to creators, influencers, anyone that you've worked with, how you all kind of think about that at Polysleep.
So obviously, I think you need two hats when you approach them. You need to be, one, very pragmatic, because they're a media placement, right? So you have to compare apple to apple in a certain way. So the first question I always ask my marketing team is, are we going to get a better return on investment from a visibility standpoint with certain influencers than if we were to buy, let's say, a billboard, or if we were to buy any sort of media? You need to, unfortunately, sometimes take out the human component of it and really say, from an impression standpoint, does it worth it? Because some influencer will charge a fortune for a simple post or a reel, which will have very little traction. Therefore, if it's just pure impression based, we got to compare it with something that will be impression based. So that's the pragmatic part. One thing we started doing more and more now is really, instead of going through agencies, really try to build relationship with micro and nano influencer ourselves. So we have someone fully dedicated to that. And we even onboard them now as affiliate partner. So the idea is to say, we're going to send you product. We're going to get you in the Polysleep family. You're going to get to love our brand. We're going to do activities with you. We actually did a puppy yoga session with some of the influencers. It was
Wow.
really, really a cool
Love it.
way to, get to know them and all. And then what we say is it's very simple. If your audience like the message, like the product, they buy from us, perfect. You got a commission of it. And that allows us to have a longer term relationship with people who actually think more about the wellness component of it and not just the product itself. So this is really what makes our current influencer strategy, I think, more successful than the strategies we've employed in the past.
Absolutely. That's awesome.
With your entrepreneur background, Jeremiah, can you shed a little bit more light around your leadership style? How has it evolved throughout the year, especially, coming out of the pandemic? And at the same time, as a company, how do you do more with fewer resources nowadays? Because we all know that times are tough.
Mm. Yes. Um, that's what I say. Every entrepreneur say, what is the most important thing when you start a business? Well, there's one very simple thing that you need to keep in mind. Do not run out of money.
Mm,
It's the single most important thing, because you can have the best marketing idea in the world or hope to get the best employee in the world. If you can't afford them, well, it's going to get you nowhere. So from there, I have to say, being in a position as a founder and CEO has become more complex. Um, Not only you need to almost become a public figure, because Gen Z and younger generation do care about who's the face of the company and also want a leader that walks the talk. Like I said, our values were not created from a piece of paper. I was bedridden. So that really helped, because we do walk the talk by default. I wouldn't have started the company if it wasn't for that problem. But leadership style had to evolve throughout the time, because the new generation really seek a place where they do belong, but at the same time also really value freedom,
mhm,
working from home, hybrid environment. So obviously, when you do that, one thing we had to drastically change from coming from a 5-day at the office type of company to a hybrid place of work is make sure everybody becomes at least, I would call them baby account manager, being really good at managing time, project based rather than
mhm,
clocking on, clocking off. We realized after the pandemic, when everybody started working from home, especially roles that are not necessarily used to, were struggling with time management. It was really hard for them. The other thing that we work hard to make sure um, we continue to have is meaningful relationship within the organization. What I mean by that is every Tuesday and Thursday when we come to the office, we do all our meeting face to face. We do take time to go for lunch on a quarterly basis with our QBR. We do activities, team building activities, because I can't imagine as a startup that is still building and define its character, how hard it is to get employees and new employees without meeting their colleague to feel part of a family, to feel part of a team, to feel part of something, Some people call it family, team, but I'm just saying, how do you create meaningful connection with new employees when they don't see their colleague outside of a Zoom meeting, when the culture is really hard to grasp because you're just working from home? It is extremely hard as a leader to adapt to that. So
mhm.
it's become more challenging, but also very rewarding at the same time.
And just to follow up on time management, so obviously, working from home has an impact on it. But you, Jeremiah, what do you like to do on your personal time? Like how do you maintain that boundary between work, life, your personal life? What hobbies, what do you like to do
Yeah,
when you're not
it's
working?
it's a cool question. You know what, Leo? I think people tend to forget that when they say time is the most important resource you have in life. I agree, but I don't agree. because you can have all the time in the world. If you don't have health or energy, it's time wasted anyway.
Mm,
So one thing that is critical to me is to work on my energy level. Sometimes you give energy, sometimes you gain energy. So for me, trying to remain balanced in terms of health, wellness, meaning going to the gym, doing exercise, reading, having meaningful conversation that are inspirational, relaxing. I don't do only healthy stuff. I love cigars. I'm going to go for a cigar, read a book, and have a drink. I love it. Listening to
That sounds
music.
great.
You need to be able to blow some steam and really
Yes.
maintain that level of energy. Everybody's different, but
Mhm.
make sure you maintain that level of energy, because if you do not have the energy, if you're tired, if you're not doing well, you know how it is when you're sick. You can have all the time in the world. It's going to be time wasted.
Absolutely. So Jeremiah, what is next for Polysleep? What's next on the agenda? Where are you guys headed? What's the trajectory?
I am so excited. I can't reveal everything, but what I can tell you is that Polysleep, the brand, will continue to be strengthened by our marketing team, but we're separating the brand from having only the DTC product being sold into retail towards two separate brands. So polysleep.ca, polysleep.com will remain the DTC brand with products that are really curated for people who wants to buy online. And we're creating Polysleep Signature and Polysleep for Professional, which is really a selection of, I would say, more than double the amount of SKU we have today, really curated to help retailer access our brand that generates actually a lot of foot traffic in store and capitalize on that to sell our product and showcase our story. So that will happen within the next 6 months, the launch of the new brand, as we roll out more and more stores, especially in the US and in Canada as well. So that's the first step. The second step, without giving too much detail, is we think it's too complex right now for consumer to understand the intricacies of foam and materials that are within a mattress. So we've decided to take the highest standards that are accessible in the market and create a stand and a brand and a stamp of approval. Think of Gore-Tex for, shoe. When you want a shoe that's going to be water resistant and you want the best of it, you know that you can't go wrong with Gore-Tex. We're trying to achieve the same thing with a new brand, a material brand, that once you see that on our mattress or any other mattress, because the goal is to sell it as a material, you're going to be confident that you're buying the best material you can possibly buy for your mattresses. So these are
Very
the two big
innovative.
initiatives. Yeah.
Very innovative. But what about the next frontier, Jeremiah? I mean, you know, we have now space shuttles going out into outer space with tourism, right? Um, do you see Polysleep in the future? Mattresses out in these hotels in outer space, space shuttles, products of Polysleep in those space shuttles. What do you see? What do you envision in terms of the next
The big
frontier?
audacious dream, right? That would be great. One thing we have on the back of our mind right now, because I think it's related to the experience, generally speaking. We've been working on it
Mhm.
for almost a year, but honestly, it's really complex. We're trying to come out with our own line of linen refreshener and experience olfactory experience to enhance not only the sleep experience, but what comes when you wake up and what comes when you go to bed. So candles, linen refreshener, things that people can use, consume with fragrances or specific smells that will help you either get to sleep or get energized. That would be something I would be very happy to launch next year. There's still a lot of work to do on that end, but that would be something more accessible that I would like. Then, of course, if SpaceX want us to make their mattress, I'll be more than happy to catch it up and work with Elon on that for sure.
But
You're
with
like,
the
we're
whole
here, we're here.
exactly, we'll let them know. But with the whole aromatherapy, it's become a much more common practice, I will say. I feel like the
Yeah.
last couple of times I've been to hotels, whether for personal or event reasons, there's always like a pillow spray.
Yeah.
on the mattress
Mhm.
that the hotel is behind. So very good one, Jeremiah.
Thank you. I'm glad you validate my point. I've been telling my team I think we should do that. It's a great idea.
Love it. Well, we've got one last question for you, Jeremiah, to round things out here. What would you like us to ask our next guest? Anything in particular you'd like to hear from other fantastic executives like yourself?
Is it harder to deal with an investor or a board? That's a tricky one, eh?
Ooh, it's a
That's
tough
a great
question
question.
If you
too.
had, because that's a question I wouldn't like to be asked. But if you had to choose between banks or investor or a board, what would you choose? That's oh, he's gonna hate me for that question.
Ooh, I love that one though. That one's great.
Well, Liz, what an inspiring story we just got from Jeremiah Kerr versus Polysleep. I mean, definitely
Absolutely.
bar none the Steve Jobs of the mattress industry, going from a video gamer who got bedridden and now launch a mattress company. Like, who would have thought?
I mean, I was, to use your word, inspired by really what he was able to share about some of the ways they engage with their customers, which are new and innovative and different. The bedtime stories, I think that's so cool. What a great way to provide value outside of just, selling a product. The puppy yoga, obviously super fun. And then, of course, the connections that they had with, streamers and gamers and sort of, promoting through that audience as well. All really smart ways to
Mhm.
find new customers and engage with new audiences, all while, again, providing fantastic value. I feel blown away, honestly.
1,000%. Definitely, that's how Polysleep stands out for me as being unique, right? They
Mhm.
take this holistic approach of going beyond the product itself and integrating the product into the day-to-day lives of the customers, right? Because that's what
Absolutely.
customers expect from brands nowadays.
Mhm.
They want those meaningful connections. They want those meaningful interactions as well.
Absolutely. And they want a company that's going to understand them and know them and grow with them. And that feels like that's exactly what Jeremiah and the Polysleep team have done. Key takeaway for me: follow what your customers are doing, be what they want you to be. Amazing. Well, thanks everyone for being here with us for our first eTail Unplugged episode. Such a pleasure to speak with Jeremiah. What a great episode. And of course, Leo, love you.
Love you
Amazing.
too. Thank you, everyone. See you at the next episode of eTail Unplugged, where we get to see more of the humans behind the brand.
Absolutely.